Hey, what's up guys, it's Lego Hobo 910 here with another Lego video, and in this video I'm reviewing set number 75251, the Star Wars Darth Vader's Castle. And before we get into the review, a lot of people that have heard about this set, or that I've told about the set, have been like, wait, Darth Vader has a castle? Either surprised or like, wait, what? Darth Vader doesn't have a castle? Well, this is the castle that you may recognize from the one brief scene in Rogue One when Director Krennic goes to talk to Vader, and then Vader makes a cringy dad joke. And the main place that this has showed up is in the Vader comics, which I haven't read, as well as in a Vader VR game, which I haven't played. So really the only place I've personally seen this myself is in Rogue One, though it has appeared in other places. And the main reason I bought this set is just because I thought it looked really cool, even though I hadn't really seen it. It was a cool set, so I decided to buy it. So let's get right into the review with some of the small side builds. There's a few small builds. The first small build here being the mouse droid, just built for 5-6 pieces, but it does its job and looks pretty cool. I especially like the way that they used these 1x1 rounded plates with clip to look like wheels from the side. So that's a really small build. Not much to say about it, but it does its purpose and looks good, as well as just adding a little bit extra to the set. But then we also have this pretty cool TIE Advanced, which is obviously smaller than it is in universe, but it's fairly shrunk down. They could easily make like a $30 set out of this, so if they wanted to fit into this $130 set, they would had to shrink it down a bit, because there'd also be a decent chunk of the set. But it looks fairly cool, and it does its job well, just like the mouse droid, even though it is fairly scaled down. So, enough room for a singular minifigure inside. If you take Darth Vader and take out his lightsaber, it opens up in a pretty unique way by opening from the top and the front as well, which you can also use as like a boarding ramp, if you please. Then, as you can see, there really isn't that much space in there, but if you sit down Darth Vader and put up his arms, his cape is the thing that makes it hardest to fit him in there. Then you can fit him in there. Also, these wings are on click hinges, which means sometimes when you set it down, you do end up squishing them like that. And then he just barely fits in. His helmet almost juts out the top there. But then you can close it all nicely. And then something that I really like about this, that I wish LEGO did on their spacecraft more, is have a place to store the weapon, even if it's just a simple little clip on the outside like this, which obviously isn't realistic and or practical, but it makes it harder to lose their weapons. Obviously on bigger models, I'd prefer if they like have a opening compartment to store the weapons, but obviously this one doesn't have that much space, since 90% of the body is taken up by having space for him. And as you can see, the window isn't, you can't actually see through it. It is a transparent piece, but then it has to connect like this with the 4x4 rounded plate behind it. Overall, it does its job, looks pretty cool, as well as looking pretty accurate. It also has 2 stud shooters on the bottom, and it does come with a stack of 3 extra studs for these 2, as well as for a stud shooter in the castle, which I'll show you later. And overall, it was actually a pretty interesting build, surprisingly. It wasn't overall boring. The way that they connected the wings was pretty fun, as well as just assembling it all. Overall, it is fairly small, but it does its job and just adds a little bit to this set by having it not just be a terrain set, but also having something that you can swoosh around, you know, and it just also adds, I don't know, it just makes it look better. It just doesn't look complete without this, because or else it's just very bland. So now let's move on to the actual castle. So now moving on to the actual castle itself, which is a fairly big and impressive model. Obviously, it's not as big as some of the, like, the set that I think of the most when I see this is the Tower of Orthanc from Lord of the Rings, and obviously it's not as big as this. I mean, not as big as the Tower of Orthanc, because here is the bottom level, which is the shortest level, but also the widest, as well as having, I guess it's kind of multiple rooms, but not really. The main purpose that this large room in the center here serves as is a hangar for the TIE Advanced. As you can see, it slides in there fairly nicely. There's not too much extra space. If you slide it to one side, you can really see that that's about as much space total on the sides, and then you probably want to center it and split that between 2. Then there's also not much room in front. So it fits mildly tightly, but it really doesn't bother me that much, because, to be honest, what all would you be doing in the hangar other than just landing the ship? And also you can see that there's some stickers back there, but they're kind of hard to see, so I'm shining in some extra light, and those are also on the side panels here. There's some on the panels as well as some on the slopes beneath. So that's a fairly simple room, but it serves its purpose. Then we also have two side rooms, starting with the one over here, which I think most blends in. This is kind of a small service room, I guess you could say. This is where the mouse droid slides in as a charging port. It has a little printed tile there, which has come in many sets. It also has a few racks of extra studs there, and that's not including the 3 that it just gives you for the TIE Advancement of Cannon I'll show you later. These are just some extra studs that are put there. And then also, right here, you have a little opening mechanism here. You just pull it down, and in there it has a red gem, which represents a bleeding kyber crystal, which are used to create Sith lightsabers. It's after you take a kyber crystal and corrupt it. And that's fairly well hidden. Obviously, it would have been much better if they filled that little gap in. And also, if they didn't include that, but I think it's kind of important to have this to pull it out. And maybe if you, like, struggle with grabbing that, it's good to have that, so I can forgive it. And then the other side is a bit more sinister, and personally, I think they should have filled in the walls on this side. On the other side, it's fine, because it connects to the hangar perfectly. This side, they should have filled in the walls, because this is a much separate room. This is a little Sith temple, and once again, there's 2 large stickers there on those panels. And then we have this little Sith shrine, which has one of the Nexo shield pieces there with another sticker. And this does pop out, this little shrine. I'll give you a bit of a better look there. And now we can see the shrine better. It uses 2 of these black cloaked micro figures, which were originally used as Emperor Palpatine, I believe in trans blue for an Emperor Palpatine hologram, but now they've also been used as Dementors in the Harry Potter castle and probably other places as well. And they just represent little Sith statues. And then we also have a Sith holocron here, which has a dark red base, as well as in one of these 4-way cheese slopes, of which is actually in trans pink. I don't know why they chose pink, but actually it surprisingly looks good. I would have thought red, but this actually, I don't know, it makes it look kind of more glowy. And, I don't know, it just looks cool, it works for me. And that just sits in there perfectly, and there's 2 of these kind of big claw pieces there at the bottom, which looks really cool. And then plus with these, 1x2 kind of perfectly into there, and it just matches up perfectly. So now that we've seen this level, there's also some stairs there to get up to the next level, which we are going to look at now. Right now, you're probably seeing this right where it would make sense in the timeline, but I'm actually recording this at the end because I forgot to mention this also does fold open to reveal a dark metallic gray lightsaber hilt over here. So yeah, get back into your normally scheduled review. This level here is my personal favorite, but before we look on the inside here, there's a bit going on the outside. Just going to give you a quick, brief look around here. You can use this as kind of a little walkway around if you so wish. But then here you can see that there's kind of something suspicious up with these stripes. They don't flow nicely like the rest of them do, and like the ones on the other side do. And the reason that there's something suspicious and also holes here is because this is hinged. It's fairly easy to grab. You just have to kind of hook that little clip, or also there's a slight ridge there. And then you just open that up, and that's just a little door to get into the room here. And then they've also built up this little door frame here, which kind of sticks out since there's nothing on the other side and it doesn't quite fully line up. Then it does have a few stickers on those slopes there, which just add a little bit of extra detail to it with those kind of Imperial lights. And then, this is my favorite room for a couple reasons. The first is just having the back tank sitting there in the center. Looks really sinister, and by the way, this is a back tank. If you didn't know, basically it's for healing. The reason it's trans blue is because Bacta is a liquid that's trans blue, and then you go in a tank filled with Bacta to heal, because it's a healing liquid. But anyway, back to the main reason why I really like this room, and it's these red windows back here. Because when you shine light through them, in fact, I'll go ahead and shine some light through for you there. As you can see, it looks really cool. It looks a lot better when you have super bright lights. But I spent like a solid half an hour in my bathroom with the lights off with this set and a couple flashlights, shining one through the window and shining one either up or down or like sideways on Vader in the back tank there, just because I thought it looked so cool. I'm gonna move these royal guards so you can see a bit better in there. That's really the only detailing in the room other than a small stickered console in there, which I'll get out. This whole build is fairly dark on the inside, so it's kind of hard to see it sometimes. So, and then in the center here we have the back tank, which actually pops out easily. So that way, instead of having to kind of fiddle around to get him out of there, which is really hard while the whole assembly's in there, you can just pop this out. And then I can also give you a bit of a better look at it. It uses some of these tooth plates hanging down, which I think looks pretty cool. The back is obviously fairly plain because you never see it, and it also needs to have room for the hinge mechanism. And so then this just hinges up, so you can either take in or pull out Vader in his back tank suit. And that's really all there is for this room, though it is my favorite, even though it is fairly simplistic. Let's move up to the next room. This is the next, and on the inside, we of course have his meditation chamber in there. Then there's also a slight place to put his lightsaber here, which I accidentally just tore out. It's just a little clip, which you can then slide the hilt of the lightsaber in. The main problem why, which is also part of the reason why I ripped this out, the main problem with this is that when you set this in here, the lightsaber can't quite fit with its blade up. It's slightly pushed over and bent simply because of the angle of the walls, so it doesn't quite fit. It more so fits if you just have the hilt, but at that point then you just have the blade floating around, so there's really no point. But it is a nice thought. Even though it doesn't quite work, it slightly bends over, but you can still use it. There's also, for some reason, 2 windows to either side there, which just let in a little bit of natural light. There's also another one of those cloaked microfigures there in Translite Blue to represent a hologram of Emperor Palpatine or anyone else that you imagine it as. And this is Vader's meditation chamber, and this whole thing can just tilt up. You can also individually bend each of these if you do so wish. There is another one of those red windows in the back there, except it's much smaller and much harder to utilize for cool pictures, though you can get some nice red light shining in behind Vader here. And this does have just enough room to sit him in there. It is a bit hard to pull him out and push him in there, as you can see, and now I'm breaking things trying to pull him out. So there's the inside of his meditation chamber, which is properly white to contrast the black on the outside, which looks pretty cool. And now, Vader's meditation chamber, I wouldn't say it's an iconic thing, but it is a fairly recognizable thing, which is really cool and kind of stood out in the movies. And obviously this isn't a perfect representation of it. For it to be perfect, you need to have much more complex mechanisms, as well as building it much bigger and kind of out of scale. But I feel like this is a fairly good representation, even though they don't quite line up in teeth like they do in the movies. Here is the 4th and final level, as well as being one of the smallest. It's just this singular large radar dish piece here. Well, I guess not radar dish piece, but this large circular dish piece, which had one big sticker that you had to put on, which was kind of annoying. And in the set, I was surprised that there wasn't really the room that Vader and Krennic met, since that was kind of important with, all the lava flowing in the background. And apparently, this is supposed to represent it, even though I don't really feel like it does, as that was a big room with huge walkways going across rivers of lava. And obviously, they wouldn't have to make it huge, but, I thought that'd be one of the main rooms in the set when I first heard about it. But this is what's supposed to represent that scene. Personally, I see it more as a place for this guy to operate the artillery, which is that cannon that I've been alluding to for a while. And as you can see, it's on a ball joint here, so it can just move around and you can aim and shoot at various targets. It does have a little clip there, except it's not big enough for a minifigure hand to hold it. So I don't really see the point of having that clip there, maybe just to make it look more like he's holding it. Overall, this does add a bit more playability to the set, though, being able to shoot at actual targets. As well as, for some reason, it has huge windows here. When I say windows, they're not really windows. If we take that guy I just showed you there, as you can see, it's right at floor level up to head level, and he can just slide on through there. And there's also one on the other side, so that's a little bit odd. They could have very easily fixed it by just putting a plate there, or a series of plates. So I don't know why they left a huge hole there instead of using maybe 1, 2, 3, or 4 more, 6 to 8 more pieces to fix that. I don't know why they decided to leave big holes there, but they did. So now if you want, I guess you can have someone come out onto this ledge, but that's not a very safe decision. So, I don't know why they included those, but overall, the actual room itself here, even though being small, functions fairly well and works with this little guy to swing around. So first up in the set for our first 2 of 5 minifigures, we have 2 different versions of Vader. A just generic Darth Vader on the left, and then the back-to-tank Vader on the right, which you saw very briefly. And both of them are pretty cool, I think. The back-to-tank Vader obviously being the most unique as it's exclusive, and I believe the first version of Vader in back-to-tank. This is just basically generic Darth Vader, and if we take off his head here, you can, or helmet, excuse me, you can see his face there, which for some reason he's smiling on. And something that I really like is how much the scars match up here. As you can see, it's like basically the exact same print for the back of the head there. And then the front of the head has very similar scar patterning. On this one, if I just move that respirator, you can see that on this one, obviously his mouth is closed as well as his eyes. And I'll just put that helmet back on. And yeah, other than that, it's just a pretty generic Vader. The same torso print as normal, no back print, as you can see. But then his red lightsaber. And like I said, the back-to-tank Vader is the coolest. He has one silver arm, and then also a silver hand, obviously, to represent his mechanical limbs, as well as some pretty intricate printing there on the torso, and the back of the torso as well. I think the front of the torso's printing is a lot cooler with those cybernetics. And then also his legs are made in silver with black printed on them. I wish they would have double molded them so that way all the way around on the sides and the back even it would look like, you know, his actual legs and then the robotic legs, but this works as well. So now let's move on to the next minifigures. Here are our 3 Imperial Troop minifigures. We have 2 identical Royal Guards, as well as this minifigure on the right, which is another really interesting minifigure named the Imperial Transport Pilot. And like I said, these 2 Royal Guards are exactly identical, using this same helmet piece that they've been using since the beginning over the black head. Then they have actually double-sided capes here, with the outside being light red, and then as you can see, the inside is a darker red. And then it's just fairly simplistic print thing there on the front, and none on the back, as it will be covered by capes most of the time. Then they have their force pikes here, as you can see. I'll put his helmet back on. And then, like I said, the Imperial Transport Pilot here is the more interesting minifigure. I especially like the blue markings, so I'm wondering if he maybe is part of the 501st, since he has blue markings, you know, the 501st when they transferred into the Empire. And for the front and back printing there, on the torso, it's just very similar to Stormtrooper printing. And then the helmet, he uses the same one for those 2 Imperial pilots from Rogue One, as well as the Sand Troopers from Rogue One, which is nice to see this helmet making a comeback as something other than just Rogue One. I really like the overall shape of it, and once again, it just has the generic clone face under it. Overall, he's a fairly cool minifigure. Has some neat printing. It's not too complex or too interesting, but it is neat. I especially like just the little dabs of blue. It really stands out from the set, as most of the set is blacks and reds, dark grays, and dark tans. Having this blue, it just pops a bunch, and I really like it. Overall, I think this is a really cool set with a lot of fairly decently interesting building techniques, such as having these entire walls just being huge panels, and then having to use hinges and clips in odd ways to connect all the floors and keep them level and stable, as well as just those red windows creating cool lighting effects on the inside, even without shining extra light in. Plus, it comes with a fairly decent group of minifigures, with 2 being exclusive and very unique, as well as Royal Guards being useful, and you can never really have too many Darth Vaders. Plus, you can't not put Darth Vader in Darth Vader Castle set, as well as having nice side builds like that. Overall, it's a really cool set, and also it stands out from a lot of other Star Wars sets, because most Star Wars sets are just ships or other vehicles, and there aren't many large terrain sets. Obviously, there are sets like the Death Star, which you could argue is a ship, as well as like Cloud City and stuff, but this is a fairly large terrain-based set, which I always find more interesting than just plain old vehicle sets. So I'm going to stop ranting about this set, and if you're interested in it, you can go buy it yourself. It's a really cool set, and I highly recommend it, and it just stands out in any display. Overall, like I've said many times, I really like this set, comes with a great cast of minifigures, and that's all for now. Bye.